We all know the struggle of rising rents, but what if the ground itself is jacking up your housing costs? In China, a mind-blowing phenomenon is unfolding. Nearly half of urban China, an area larger than Texas, is sinking. That's right, mega cities and bustling metropolises are slowly disappearing beneath people's feet. Will millions be forced to become climate refugees in their own country? Or will China find what's causing this land grab and find a solution? Let's look at what's causing 45% of China's urban landscape to sink. With its massive population of 1.4 billion people, China's facing a surprising and pretty concerning problem. The ground under many of its cities is sinking. Recently, the buzz about China's major cities sinking has exploded on Chinese social media, also thanks to a paper published on April 18th in the scientific journal Science. The paper, titled A National Scale Assessment of Land Subsidence in China's Major Cities, was put together by a research team led by Zhurui Ao, an associate researcher at South China Normal University. Using satellite technology, they measured how the land surface changed in elevation across 82 major cities from 2015 to 2022. The findings are pretty striking, with the study showing that 45% of these cities are sinking faster than 3 millimeters per year, and 16% are going down at a rate faster than 10 millimeters per year, affecting about 270 million people. What's surprising is that this isn't just an issue for the eastern coastal cities. It's also happening in some northern, western, and southwestern cities. The paper also makes a worrying prediction. By the year 2120, because of both land subsidence and rising sea levels, around 26% of China's coastal lands could end up below sea level, impacting about 11% of the coastal population. Zhurui Ao pointed out that even though only a small portion of China's land is sinking, it still poses a big problem. With China's urban population being over 900 million, even a little bit of sinking land can create a major issue for urban life. This research is a wake-up call, showing that the sinking land is a serious threat. The combination of subsiding cities and rising seas means that millions of people might have to deal with the consequences much sooner than anyone expected. Now think about this happening over a century. If this keeps up, a quarter of China's coastal land could end below sea level. What makes this even scarier is that the sea levels are rising too, thanks to climate change. So you've got this land sinking on one hand and water levels rising on the other. A double whammy. This isn't some far-off sci-fi scenario, it's happening right now, and it's affecting millions of people in China's biggest cities. The combination of sinking land and rising seas is a real and present danger, and it's something that's starting to demand serious attention. But one question still remains: why is it happening? Is it just climate change, some geographical factors, or other factors that we might not even consider? Although the research paper didn't pinpoint the exact reasons, it hinted that groundwater extraction, heavy buildings, and urban development are likely to blame. Natural factors like the geological environment and bedrock depth also play a part. Interestingly, the paper did not explore the issue of excessive groundwater extraction, which seems to be a big factor. It's not just an urban problem either. The sinking land costs China over 7.5 billion yuan, which is about $1 billion every year. But it's unclear what that includes. A senior geological engineer, Henry Lee, explained that widespread subsidence in urban areas is a big picture issue. Locally, it might show up as slow sinking or sudden ground collapses, which can cause significant damage. These collapses happen because when the ground compacts, it can create voids that lose water or sediment, making the ground less stable and prone to collapse. This isn't just a local issue affecting some parts of China. As Robert Nichols from the Tyndall Center for Climate Change Research at the University of East Anglia put it, it really brings home that this is for China a national problem and not a problem in just one or two places. He also pointed out that what's happening in China is a snapshot of similar issues happening worldwide. Take Tianjin, for example. This northern city with a population of just over 15 million people has been hit hard. Just last year, 3,000 residents had to be evacuated due to a sudden geological disaster. Investigators found that this disaster was caused by water depletion and the construction of geothermal wells. It's a reminder of how urban development and resource extraction can lead to serious issues, unexpected problems. But that's not all. Back in 2014, research pointed out that before the ground collapse, you usually get some warning signs like subsidence and underground cracks. These signs can help give an early heads up about potential collapses. When the ground sinks, it can lead to problems. Building foundations can settle unevenly, houses can crack, underground pipelines can get damaged, and even well casings can shift. Plus, it worsens flooding and storm surges, which is a huge headache for any city. Take what happened on April 18th in Lanzhou City. Gansu Province. There was a serious road collapse and cracking in the area. Mr. Lee, a local resident, said the ground collapsed more than a meter deep over an area around 500 meters long, affecting all the storefronts along the street. Since 2019, the neighborhood and nearby roads have been dealing with continuous collapses, even swallowing cars whole in some instances. And it's not just the roads. Buildings have been hit too. In this neighborhood's first phase of development, buildings have also collapsed. One of those buildings has had it particularly bad. Since the beginning of the year, the building and the area outside the main gate have been surrounded by ground collapses. The situation hasn't gotten any better since, forcing many residents to pack up and leave. Lanzhou has had a series of these subsidence accidents. For instance, in December 2022, similar issues were reported. The Dona neighborhood in Qilihe District, Lanzhou City, has also been dealing with some major stress lately. Foundation subsidence has led to cracks and deformations forming in building walls, making life pretty nerve-wracking for residents. People there are genuinely concerned, with one resident saying, "It's affecting our lives. I'm so scared. People are really afraid. I'm really scared too, living up here. You see how the bottom of our building has cracked like this. It's really frightening. Even the walls at home have started to crack." Another added, "The cracks in our buildings are getting bigger and bigger. The unit doors won't even open, and people can't get out. We're really worried about the situation we're living in." Back in 2016, multiple road collapses occurred in just one day, with cars falling into pits and pedestrians getting injured. Just recently, on April 15th, a road collapsed in Hohhot, Inner Mongolia, creating a pit about 10 meters wide and 4 meters deep. Witnesses described hearing the sound of flowing water as the ground gave way. One person described a close call, saying, "That bus was parked by the roadside the whole time. Just as it started moving, the ground where it had been parked suddenly collapsed. I was only 20 meters away from the bus, so I hit the brakes." The issues don't stop at just the ground sinking. It's about feeling like your world is falling apart. It's hard to feel safe when your home is cracking and you can't even open your door. China's land subsidence issue isn't just about rapidly expanding cities, it's also heavily tied to the country's old coal mining districts. Overmining has left those areas vulnerable, often forcing authorities to inject concrete into the crumbling mine shafts to keep the land from sinking further. However, this problem isn't limited to China. A study published in February revealed that about 6.3 million square kilometers, which is 2.4 million square miles of land worldwide, is at risk of subsidence. Indonesia is among the hardest hit, with significant parts of its capital, Jakarta, now sitting below sea levels. Robert Nichols once again highlighted that vulnerable cities could take a page from Tokyo's playbook. Tokyo sank by about 5 meters until the 70s when it banned groundwater extraction, a move that has since stabilized the city. Nichols emphasized the importance of serious subsidence mitigation, but he noted that complete prevention isn't feasible. This means cities also need to focus on adaptation measures, like building dikes. A 2022 study from Singapore found that of the 44 major coastal cities suffering from subsidence, 30 are in Asia. This ties the issue closely to urbanization and population growth. As Matt Way, a geophysics expert at the University of Rhode Island, explained, it's a problem of urbanization and population growth. Larger population density means more water is extracted, leading to more subsidence. In a paper published in 2023, they pinpointed 5 major subsiding centers in the urban area of Hohhot. These centers sank at an average annual rate of 3.65 millimeters, with a total cumulative subsidence of 15.5 millimeters. The effects of this subsidence are getting worse and worse, as seen on January 20th of the year in Tongling, Anhui Province, where a parking lot collapsed, swallowing cars into a sinkhole and causing some sheds to collapse. Official data released by the Chinese government in 2019 revealed some alarming trends. At the end of 2015, over 50 cities at the prefecture level or above in 21 provinces had experienced ground subsidence. That is double the number compared to the end of 2010. The affected area was massive, with over 12,400 square kilometers experiencing a ground subsidence rate exceeding 50 millimeters yearly. And the problem wasn't just widespread, it was severe. Around 92,000 square kilometers, an area roughly the size of Portugal, had cumulative ground subsidence exceeding 200 millimeters, with Tangshan's largest cumulative subsidence point. Speaking of Tangshan, it's in a tough spot. Among all the sinking cities in China, Tangshan is sinking the fastest, with an average annual sinking rate exceeding 52 millimeters. The World Meteorological Organization chimed in with a report in 2023, noting that the average annual sea level rise from 2013 to 2022 was 4.62 millimeters. If the sinking rate in Tangshan and the sea level rise rate remain unchanged, huge swaths of land along its coast could be underwater in just 50 years. Many areas there have an elevation of only 1 to 3 meters. Fast forward to May 31, 2023, and more trouble hit Tangshan. Several high-rise apartment buildings in the Country Garden neighborhood suddenly started sinking, tilting, and experienced foundation cracking. The situation was so dire that over 3,800 residents had to relocate urgently. The collapse and deformation of the ground in the community and its surroundings resulted in a maximum subsidence of over 2 meters. This was once again all due to long-term excessive groundwater extraction. This wasn't unprecedented either. In Jing'an District, right where the Country Garden neighborhood sits, a huge groundwater depression funnel was discovered. It's no small thing either. It formed around 2000, and by 2017 it covered 60 square kilometers. That's a lot of damage. Now let's dive into the numbers a bit. Monitoring data from a well near the Country Garden neighborhood showed that the water level dropped from 92 meters in 2006 to 145 meters in 2017. That's a significant drop, averaging about 4.8 meters every year. So what's causing this? Henry Lee, a forensic scientist, took a look and figured out the problem. Predictably, he says it's all about the excessive extraction of underground hot water from the limestone formations in the area. That's led to a decrease in the regional water level. Now, the limestone formation has cast caves that have weakened because of the drop in groundwater pressure. With all the weight from buildings and other infrastructure on the surface, the underground rock layers started to collapse and sink. And if that wasn't enough, people recently posted videos showing an office building in the Xing'an area totally submerged in water. Some experts think it's related to ground subsidence. This is made much worse due to the fact that the Xing'an area is right next to Baiyangdian, which happens to be the lowest point in the North China Plain. It's geologically known as the Zhejiang Depression, a rift valley-type basin with many tectonic movements and complex fault zones. The upper layer of this depression comprises river sediments, which are pretty loose and prone to subsidence when there's no groundwater to hold them up. China's capital isn't safe either, as pointed out in a May 2022 study published in the Journal of Remote Sensing, revealing a stunning fact. Beijing also has these massive groundwater depression funnels, and the whole city is sinking. From April 2010 to December 2019, the subsidence rate in Beijing skyrocketed. We're talking anywhere from negative 7.4 to positive 5.1 millimeters per year. The main trouble spots are the Chaoyang district and the Tongzhou district. Even the Beijing subway system is still feeling the effects. 6 of the 15 subway lines have an average deformation rate of over 5 millimeters per year and a max rate of 96.1 millimeters per year. That's some serious shifting going on underground. According to the 14th Five-Year Plan for Geological Disaster Prevention and Control in Beijing, by the end of 2021, subsidence in the Beijing Plain area had spread to 2 major regions, north and south. The average annual subsidence rate is a hefty 8.73 millimeters. And now comes the most shocking part: Shanghai. The ground there has been sinking like a rock since 1921. Experts say it's dropped by more than 2 meters since. And guess what's making it worse? Yep, good old global warming. As the sea level along the Shanghai coast keeps rising, thanks to global warming, it's only making the subsidence problem worse. They're saying it could rise by another 5 to 7 centimeters by 2050. That might not sound like much, but when you're already sitting at an average ground elevation of only 4 meters, like in Shanghai, every little bit counts. Now let's talk about Xi'an, a city out in China's central west. It's not immune to the sinking blues either. There's been some serious subsidence happening there too. You won't believe it, but even their ancient structures are feeling the squeeze. The symbolic bell tower has sunk by 395 millimeters, and the big wild goose pagoda, with over 1,300 years of history, has tilted by over 1,198 millimeters. It's almost like another copy of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Most of Xi'an's sinking is happening in urban and suburban areas. Since they started to keep track in 1959, the subsidence zone has grown to a massive 158 square kilometers, and 48 square kilometers of that is experiencing subsidence of over 500 millimeters. That is no small sinkhole. Large-scale leveling measurements have shown 7 big subsidence funnels in the urban planning area. It's like the ground is just giving away beneath their feet. With cities sinking and ancient monuments tilting, it's clear China needs to take a serious step to deal with this sinking situation before it's too late. But before that, we must know what's causing all this chaos underground. Well, it turns out it's mostly human activities. Yes, the bigger finger gets pointed at our thirst for groundwater. We're talking massive quantities pumped out for everything from watering crops to building skyscrapers. Farming is thirsty business. Crops need a steady water supply to grow, and groundwater is the primary source in many regions. Large-scale irrigation systems can suck up enormous amounts of water, depleting the underground reserves at an alarming rate. The construction boom in China, particularly in coastal regions, is another major consumer of groundwater. Water is needed for everything from mixing concrete to keeping dust down at construction sites. When multiplied across countless projects, these small demands translate into some significant groundwater depletion. Even in our daily lives, we rely on groundwater. In some areas, it's the primary source of drinking water, especially for rural communities. Additionally, household activities like laundry and gardening contribute to the overall demand. All that water acts like a natural underground support system for the soil above. When we take it out, the soil gets compacted, like a deflated beach ball, and the ground starts to sink. Let's simplify it a bit more. Do you know about that giant sponge analogy? When we extract large amounts of groundwater, it's like squeezing the water out of that sponge. The spaces the water once occupied becomes empty, causing the ground above it to lose its support structure. This is similar to what happens to a beach ball when you let the air out. It shrinks and collapses. In the case of the Earth's crust, the empty spaces in the ground cause the soil particles to pack together more tightly, leading to compaction. This compaction in turn results in subsidence, which is the fancy term for the ground sinking. As we discussed earlier, the consequences of subsidence can be quite serious. As the ground level drops, buildings can become unstable, foundations can crack, and critical infrastructure like pipelines and sewage systems can be damaged. Furthermore, saltwater intrusion can become a problem in coastal areas, as sinking land allows seawater to seep inland, contaminating fresh water supplies. But it's not just human activity causing the ground to sink. Mother Nature's got her hand in the mix too. Take Xi'an and Tianjin, for example. They've got these fault zones and basins that are just asking for trouble. The rift system in Xi'an and Tianjin, yeah, that's a recipe for some serious land subsidence. Now, why did all this excessive groundwater extraction happen in the first place? Well, blame it on the accelerated urbanization process. When there's not enough water to go around, the government starts sucking it out of the ground like there's no tomorrow. And why's that? Because they're all about promoting urbanization, and what better way to do it than by building more and more real estate? According to some data from the Blue Book of Real Estate released by the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, land and tax account for 70% of the total housing price. As Ren Ping, a well-known economist, put it, it's like the government scraping off 60 to 80% of the cheese from housing prices. And if that's not enough, the income from land transfers makes up more than 40% of the long-term fiscal revenue of local governments in China. This breakneck push for urbanization has resulted in China playing host to over 600 million buildings. Yes, 600 million. And you can bet your bottom dollar all that weight is putting some serious pressure on the ground. So you've got these massive buildings weighing down on the ground, and at the same time you've got the ground hollowing out beneath your feet. It's no wonder parts of the land just give way and collapse altogether. This has all been fueled by the country's ever-growing urban population, skyrocketing from about 172.5 million in 1978 to 1.43 billion by 2024, a stunning increase of 1.2 billion people. The urbanization rate has shot up, too, from a humble 17.9% in 1978 to 65.2% in 2024, climbing over 47 percentage points in just 40 years. Beijing's growth is a prime example of this urban explosion. Between 2000 and 2020, the built-up area of Beijing's urban suburbs ballooned from 491 square kilometers to 1,469 square kilometers, and the population soared from 13.8 million to 21.9 million. That's a whole lot of people crammed into one city. But despite all the growth, Beijing's water resources are in hot water. With an average annual resident population of 21.9 million, each person has access to a mere 100.9 cubic meters of water, way below the internationally recognized extremely water-stressed alert line of 500 cubic meters. And guess what? Beijing's been guzzling groundwater like it's going out of style. More than half of its water comes from groundwater resources. But as the urban area keeps expanding, more and more ground gets paved over, making it tough for rainwater to seep in and replenish those groundwater supplies. It's like trying to fill up a leaky bucket. No matter how much water you put in, it just keeps draining out. This is made so much worse by local governors jacking up the land prices by pushing for high-value Riverview and Lakeview properties. It's like a real estate frenzy out there, with developers scrambling to cash in on those scenic waterfront spots. But at what cost? With groundwater levels plummeting and urban areas expanding faster than ever, it's a recipe for disaster. We saw just that on July 20, 2021, when a catastrophic flood hit Zhengzhou, and a renowned hydrologist had some pretty damning insights about it. He pointed the fingers at the local government, accusing them of prioritizing long, picturesque riverfront properties over public safety. They messed with the Jialu River channel, altering its width and making it yo-yo between wide and narrow. This messed with the river's flow, choking its capacity to handle floodwaters. As a result, the river couldn't cope when the flood hit, spilling over its banks and swamping the city. The consequences were dire. Line 5 of the subway got hit hard, with official figures reporting 14 deaths and 5 injuries. But the public isn't buying it, suspecting the authorities of sugarcoating the truth. And those floodwaters didn't even help replenish the groundwater. They rushed too fast to seep into the ground, leaving the city high and dry. But that's not all. China's river management has been a general hot mess for years. The government's been on a dam building spree, throwing up hydroelectric power stations, reservoirs, and dams like there's no tomorrow. But all these structures mess with the delicate balance between rivers and groundwater. By disrupting the natural flow of water, they've thrown the whole system out of whack. To make matters worse, the Chinese government loves to keep those reservoirs brimming with water. Sure, it's great for hydroelectric power, but it's terrible news for groundwater. With the reservoirs constantly topped up, there's no room for rainwater to trickle down and replenish groundwater. In the 1950s, when the Communist Party was finding its feet in China, the Yongding River was gushing with about 2 billion cubic meters of water every year. Fast forward to the 1980s and the flow had faded to just 300 million cubic meters, a staggering drop of 1.7 billion cubic meters. What happened? Over 100 reservoirs popped up along the Yongding River, turning it into a sprawling lake. Sounds idyllic, right? Wrong. The increased surface area meant more water evaporated into thin air. To add insult to injury, each reservoir was siphoning off water for irrigation, leaving the downstream areas parched. But that's not the end of the waterworks. Surface water pollution has thrown another wrench into the works. With rivers turning into toxic streams, many regions are pinning their hopes on groundwater. Unfortunately, that's not in great shape either. Ma Jun, the big cheese at the Institute for Public and Environmental Affairs, has some sobering news. Water pollution is a nationwide party, thanks to shady characters in the polluting industry. And when water sources get contaminated, the treatment process just churns out more nasties, creating a vicious cycle. And it's not just the polluters who are to blame. The government's got some splaining to do too. With lax environmental laws and paltry fines for violations, many companies see pollution as just another cost of doing business. And with local officials more interested in GDP growth than clean air and water, the problem just keeps spiraling. But let's not forget about the air. China's battle with smog and dust storms is legendary. And it's not just the atmosphere suffering. Pollutants are seeping into the ground, contaminating both surface and groundwater. So when you peel back the layers, it's clear. Over-extraction of groundwater, unchecked urban expansion, and rampant pollution are all fueling the subsidence crisis. So, can we stop China from sinking? Well, not exactly, but we can slow down and reverse subsidence in some areas. Let's discuss some possible strategies. First of all, implementing strict regulations on groundwater extraction is crucial to limiting the amount of water being pumped out of the ground. By enforcing clear guidelines and penalties for excessive extraction, authorities can ensure that water resources are used sustainably. This includes monitoring extraction rates, setting quotas for water usage, and requiring permits for groundwater pumping. By controlling the amount of water withdrawn from aquifers, people can help prevent further depletion and mitigate the risk of land subsidence. To depend less on groundwater, China must invest money into other ways of procuring water, like desalination or water recovery. These technologies offer long-term ways to meet water needs without using up underground supplies. Desalination takes the salt out of ocean water to make fresh water, and water recycling cleans up wastewater so it can be used again in different ways. They can protect against land subsidence caused by over-extraction and ease the stress on groundwater supplies by using various water sources and investing in these technologies. Cracking illegal pollution and construction practices is vital to addressing the root causes of land subsidence. Illegal activities such as unregulated waste disposal and unauthorized construction can contaminate groundwater and destabilize the ground. By enforcing environmental regulations and imposing strict penalties for violations, the authorities can deter such practices and protect water quality and land integrity. Additionally, increasing monitoring and surveillance efforts can help identify and address illegal activities more effectively, preventing further environmental damage and mitigating land subsidence. Encouraging responsible urban planning is also a key to minimizing the impact of construction on the ground and reducing the risk of land subsidence. This includes adopting sustainable building practices, implementing land use regulations, and incorporating measures to mitigate soil erosion and groundwater depletion. By prioritizing smart growth and green infrastructure initiatives, cities can promote more resilient development patterns that preserve natural resources and protect against subsidence. Engaging stakeholders, including developers, planners, and communities in the planning process, can ensure that urbanization is carried out responsibly and sustainably. The only way to detect ground subsidence and act quickly to stop it is to improve monitoring and early warning systems. To detect potential regions of subsidence, authorities can use cutting-edge technology like satellite images, GPS monitoring, and ground sensors to be alerted to possible hazards through early warning systems, enabling proactive measures to limit the repercussions of subsidence. It's essential to gather data and monitor conditions regularly to evaluate the efficacy of interventions and make necessary adjustments to tactics in response to changing subsidence risks. Although a lot less likely given China's history, collaborating with international partners would also be beneficial for sharing knowledge and resources to address land subsidence on a global scale. By exchanging best practices, lessons learned, and scientific expertise, countries can benefit from collective efforts to tackle common groundwater depletion and subsidence challenges. International cooperation can facilitate technology transfer, capacity building, and funding opportunities for implementing sustainable water management strategies. Through partnerships with organizations, governments, and research institutions worldwide, the world can leverage collective expertise and resources to develop innovative solutions and address the root causes of land subsidence. Now check out why China's plans for Taiwan are in trouble, or watch this video instead.